Hi everybody, welcome back to Algebra. This is the week of April 20th. This week's videos are going to cover our big last final topic, which is factoring by grouping, and also some mixed factoring. So we're going to go ahead and cover our last topic of how to factor this week. We're going to look at polynomials. So we're going to see examples where we have 4 terms instead of just 3. And then we're going to put all the pieces together this week and decide which method of factoring we should use and how to go about it. So we're going to put all those pieces, everything that we've learned so far, we're going to put it all together. Just a quick recap and reminder for us as we go into this week. We see that we have an assignment due on Tuesday. This video is actually going to cover everything that you need for Monday and Tuesday this week, so make sure we're listening very closely. We're going to have another assignment due on Thursday. That's going to be the assignment that's going to address all of the types of factoring we've talked about so far. And then after you turn in your assignments, if you want to get extra points, you will be able to do that review and get your extra points back, earn those points back for other assignments earlier in the week. If you are confused, please reach out. My email is listed here for you, and so is my Google Voice number. You are welcome to text any pictures of your assignments to this number, and I'm happy to look at them and grade them that way. So let's go ahead and jump in for today. Again, this video is for your first assignment that is due on Tuesday, which is all about factoring polynomials by grouping. So this video should cover everything you need for Monday and Tuesday of this week, but like I said, please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. There are 4 steps that we're going to follow in order to factor polynomials by grouping. Something important to note first is what's written already on my screen for you, and I'm going to go ahead and highlight it here, is that we're going to use 4 terms to factor this week. So as you see in our example, we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 terms that we're looking at. Okay, so that's something important to pay close attention to. We're not able to use the snowflake method because we have 4. So let's go through the steps with this first example here and see kind of what we're looking at and what we need to do. Step 1, if we have a 4-term polynomial, what we need to do with step number 1 is we need to group the first 2 terms together and the last 2 terms together. So I'm going to go ahead and do that with my pen, and I'm just going to underline the first 2 terms and the last 2 terms. So I've already done that. The next step asks me to factor out the greatest common factor, GCF. As a reminder for us, stands for greatest common factor. I'll make a note of that here for us. Our greatest common factor for each binomial. So we need to treat this first set of terms as a binomial and the second set of terms as a binomial. So let's pay attention to this first binomial to start ourselves off. We have an x to the third plus a 7x squared. And I'm going to go ahead and I'll write in our thirds and our squares here. So when we see this binomial, we need to think about what is it that these 2 terms have in common? What can I factor out of this first term and this second term? Oops, sorry, y'all. Wow, we are struggling here. All right, now we're back and ready. So we have our x to the third and our 7x squared. What do these all have in common? Well, I know that they both share an x, and they both share actually an x squared. So I'm going to go ahead and make a note for myself that they both share an x to the second power. So I can remove that from both of the terms, and when I do that, what I'm going to have left, when I divide by that greatest common factor, just like we did a couple weeks ago, I'm going to be left with an x to the first power and a 7. And I'm going to do that same process with my second binomial here. I am going to recognize that I have a 2x plus 14. And I need to think about what is the greatest common factor? What can I take out of 2x and 14? What do they both share? And I know that they both share a 2. And I can divide both of those terms by 2. And when I do that, I am left with x plus 7. So I factored out that greatest common factor. Step 3 has us taking now all of the pieces that we just found and combining them together. So the greatest common factor from each binomial, from each of the terms that we just separated, will become one factor, and the remaining binomial will be the other factor. So here's how we're going to put these together. We are going to go ahead and take our pieces, our x squared and our 2 are going to be combined together. And then if we look at what's inside of our parentheses, we see that those two are the same, our x plus 7. So our factored out solution is x squared plus 2 and x plus 7. Where did I get those values from? A reminder, the x squared plus 2 came from the outside parts of my parentheses, and the x plus 7 came from the inside of my parentheses. If I want to check my answer, I can go ahead and FOIL. I can do my first times my outside times my inside times my last. So let's go ahead and do that. X squared times x is going to give us x to the third. My outside is going to give me 7x squared. My inside is going to give me 2x. And my last 7 times 2 gives me 14. So the question I need to ask myself now is, does this top example match my bottom example? And when I look, I see that they match, so I know I did my work correctly. Okay, let's go ahead and let's do another example following these steps. Give myself some space to work here. And let's go ahead and start off with my 3x cubed plus 15x minus 2x minus 10. So I know the first thing I need to do is I need to group my terms together. My first binomials, these two are together, and the negative 2x minus 10 are together. Now I know my next step is to find that and factor out that greatest common factor. So the first thing I need to look at the 3x cubed plus 15x squared. And I think, is there a number they have in common? And I know that yes, they can both be divided by 3. And is there a letter they have in common? Yes, they can both be divided by an x squared. That's the biggest x I can take out of each. When I do that, I'm going to take the 3 divided by 3 to give me a 1. X cubed divided by x squared leaves me with x to the first, remembering to subtract those exponents. 15 divided by 3 is going to leave me with 5, and then those x squareds are going to cancel out. I do that same greatest common factor with my second set. So I'm going to say that both of them have a negative 2 that I could divide them by, but they don't have a letter they share, so I'm going to have to stop there. When I divide both of these terms by negative 2, I'm going to be left with 1x. 10 divided by negative 2 is going to leave me with a 5. Step 3 reminds us that we need to now go ahead and combine our terms that we just found. So I know I'm going to put my 3x squared with my negative 2. And I'm going to put my 1x plus 5 and 1x plus 5. I know those two match, so I did my work correctly. So my final answer is 3x squared minus 2. And then 1x plus 5. If we need a refresher on where we got those from, I will re-highlight them for us. But the 1x plus 5 came from the inside of our parentheses. The 3x squared minus 2 came from the outside. All right, for good measure, let's go ahead and try one more. This one's a little bit more complicated because we have some letters involved, but the process looks exactly the same. So we're going to start off by grouping our first terms and our last terms together. Step 1, check. Step 2 is going to ask us now to factor out that greatest common factor. So we need to think about letters and numbers that they both share and can be divided by. So I know that 8 and 12 can both be divided by 4. So that's going to be one of my greatest common factors. And they also both share an x, but only an x to the first power. There isn't an x to the second here. So that's the biggest my x. Now, when I remove that, I divide each of my two terms by that greatest common factor. 8 divided by 4 gives me 2. X squared divided by x is going to leave me with an x. 12 divided by 4 is going to leave me with 3. And I know my x's are going to cancel. Same thing with my next set of terms, except now here I have x's and y's. It doesn't change our process. We know that we are looking for our greatest common factors. So I see that they really don't share any numbers here, but I do see that they both share a y. So I can take that y out as my greatest common factor. And when I'm going to do that and I divide out the y, I'm left with a 2x at the beginning and a 3 in the second. I've done all the hard work. Now all I need to do is group my terms back together. And so I'm reminding myself that the 4x and the y are going to go together, and that my 2x plus 3 is present in both parts of my parentheses. So that's another way to know that I did my math correctly. And now that I have them grouped, I'm done with step 3, and I can go ahead and I can record my answers as 4x plus y. Notice I have that addition sign to represent that positive y, and 2x plus 3, because that was what was on the inside of my parentheses. So I need to have the outside and the insides represented. So here's what was inside my parentheses, and here's what was outside. Process is the same, even if we have multiple letters. So let's quickly take a look at your assignment. Your assignment that is due Tuesday, 4/21, is numbers 3 through 8. There are 6 problems, just like every assignment that we have done so far. Make sure you are emailing and sending a picture to me when you are done with these problems. My email address is at the bottom of the screen here for you if you need it. We'll make it a lot bigger so you can see it. Feel free to email or text me a picture when you're finished. I don't care which method, but we are solving these problems by grouping. Please stop into Zoom today if you have any questions that I can answer. And I am excited to see your work and to keep on Zooming with you in this e-learning. Have a great day, everybody.